It's Sunday night, it's 9:30, and it's time for the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers show made by the fans, for the fans. Tonight on the show, we're going to be looking back at a cracking week for the Rangers, including a full analysis of a demolition of Hibs, a masterclass out in Denmark, and we'll also check in with all the latest news around the club. My name's Ross Bennett. I'm going to be your Gersnet Podcast host for the evening, and it brings me great pleasure to introduce my guests. First up, we've got one of the original pod contributors. It's fantastic to have him back on the show. It's David Fraser. David, how are you this evening?
Very well, thanks, Ross. Good evening. Yeah, good day today, and raring to go.
And were you at Ibrox today, aye?
I was indeed, yes. Witnessed a very handy performance by the boys and following on from Thursday night. So, all's well in the Rangers' garden, as I say.
Certainly is at the moment. It's good. It gives us plenty to talk about tonight. And you and I have had a couple of times over the past couple of years where we've had some pretty difficult shows to get through after some tough defeats. So I'm looking forward to this one. Also with us this evening and making his Gersnet podcast debut, it's a very, very warm welcome to Iain Duff. Iain, are you looking forward to making your debut tonight?
I think I am, yeah. Could have picked a better day for it, really, to be honest.
Absolutely. No, everyone's in good spirits. It's going to be a good show. Now, listen, like I've said, we are broadcasting live this evening as we do every Sunday. What that means is you guys at home, you can get involved with the show. All you have to do is leave your comments and your questions over on the YouTube stream that you've got loaded up there. I'll keep my eye on that and we'll get through as many of those questions and comments as we possibly can. Right, I reckon that's all the pleasantries out of the way. We've got so much that we're going to try and get through this evening. It's time to crack on with the show. We're better to start than with the incredibly satisfying win over the mob from Leith this afternoon. David, let's start with yourself. What did you make of the game today, the overall performance?
Yeah, it was a very good performance, Ross. Went along to the game today expecting it to be far tighter than it actually was. But getting an early goal or two early goals, it was looking very, very good for the first 30 minutes or so of the first half. Then obviously Hibs came back into the game, scored a good goal with a cracking pass from he who shall not be mentioned through to Darryl Horgan, and then we picked it up in the second half. And as I was saying off air to the lads, off air Marciano saved Hibs from a severe hiding today. But yeah, the performance was good overall. Some very good individual performances, and overall I thought it was a very good team performance following on from Thursday night.
It certainly was, and it seemed like we very much avoided a European hangover. There didn't seem to be signs of fatigue. Jordan Jones, who got 90 minutes on Thursday, was running all over the park and must have covered a hell of a lot of miles out there, chasing every ball down. It's hard to kind of pick out any players to criticise, but we're going to be positive this evening. Iain, who particularly stood out for you this afternoon?
Well, I thought the second half, especially, Stephen Davis was outstanding. My issue with Davis in the past has been when he sits back, but when he pushes forward, he can be unplayable. And second half today, I thought he was outstanding. But I mean, I think you said it was a great team performance, and that was probably the key to it. And I think that's for the season. That's what that's really what we're looking for. Is it's great to have individuals that play well, but what we want is a good team performance, especially when teams getting changed from game to game. If we can keep it going as a team, then that's that's going to really help. We can't rely on Morelos every week or Tavernier every week. We want the whole team to contribute, and I think that was the pleasing thing from today.
Aye, absolutely. I mean, you kind of hit on the rotation of the team there. Obviously, we've had an important game out in Denmark on Thursday that's taken a lot of legs and a lot of travelling as well. And so there was some rotation in the squad today. Iain, were you surprised at the team that he picked? Obviously Scotty Arfield dropped out, Morelos dropped out, who was in superb form on Thursday, possibly one of his greatest games for Rangers so far. Were you surprised at the team that was put out there, or do you think it was kind of sensible rotation at this stage?
I wasn't surprised at all, no, to be honest. I think Gerrard sort of made it clear that that's what he's hoping to do. He's wanting to have two players for every position, and because the games, especially at this time of season, the games are coming thick and fast, and it really needs to be, changing the team to suit the circumstances. And I think, in a home game at Ibrox, admittedly against maybe one of the better teams in the league, you would hope that we could definitely get by with a different team than we would put out in a European game. And I was quite happy with the team, especially as get these guys on the bench and they can come on, and if things are going badly, then somebody like Morelos can change the game. So I was quite happy. I wasn't surprised at all, to be honest.
I mean, obviously Morelos came on late. He didn't exactly change the game. He more sort of kept the momentum going. David, Iain mentioned there that for him, Steve Davis really stood out, and I have to agree. I thought it was probably his best game in the second spell at the club. Do you think that today's game showed that there is a way that Steve Davis and Ryan Jack can play in the same squad? We've mentioned over the past few shows that sometimes the two of them can sort of sit back a bit too much. There's not enough attack and drive. Obviously, Steve Davis's legs are a wee bit older and perhaps doesn't have as much energy to push forward in the way that he would have done 7 or 8 years ago. But did today's game show that Steve Davis and Ryan Jack could be a successful midfield partnership?
I would say so. The performance and scoreline would suggest that they can be a partnership in the middle of the pitch. I think it probably comes down to how clinical the strikers are, or people that are taking the chances. Or if let's say that the team are creating chances, maybe passing them up, that puts additional pressure on guys in the middle of the pitch. So if we're clinical and ruthless, to use the buzzword that the manager's been using of late, that takes pressure off guys to play in the middle of the pitch and try and be creative. Now, Iain mentioned there quite rightly that the two players, Stephen Davis and Ryan Jack, Stephen Davis is probably the more creative, naturally creative player, although Ryan Jack's trying to add that more and more to his game. When Ryan Jack's on the side, I would imagine that he will be assigned the kind of Daniel Candeias cover for Tav duty in the team, and he kind of funnels back into the right back area from time to time. That obviously gives Steve Davis a platform to go forward if we recycle the ball and there's in between transitions, so to speak. So yeah, I think we've got two good midfielders playing well. Obviously Steve Davis has picked up a knock in the early part of the season, and he's come in today and he's played really, really well. Ryan Jack's playing consistently. Joe Aribo's finding his feet and he's looking quite good. So yeah, I would imagine it gives us grounds for optimism going forward. Ross.
And so, David, did anyone else particularly stand out for you today? What about Jordan Jones's performance?
I think Jordan picked up from where he left off on Thursday night largely. He looks hungry. He's willing to take guys on. He's direct. He looks to want to be involved in the play, which is healthy. A lot of when news broke that we were interested in Jordan Jones, a lot of fans, probably rightly so, were scratching their heads and thinking, is Jordan Jones good enough to play for Rangers? And that obviously remains to be seen. It's very much early days, but I was of the opinion that getting a move to Ibrox, especially if you're a Rangers supporter, as Jordan's been growing up, it could be the making of the guy. And the two games that I've seen him, well, today was my first game that I've actually seen Rangers live. I've not attended any of the pre-qualifiers for the Europa League and any of the friendlies. So I've been quite impressed with him. He certainly was good on Thursday night, and again, as I said earlier, he took his form on Thursday night into today's game, and he looked very, very lively.
I think with a guy like Jones, the big test is going to be when he plays against the teams where we know we have to break them down. So like the away game at Kilmarnock or just about anyone else who play away from home, basically. They're going to be the games that he's going to have to show whether he's got what it takes to beat a player, get a cross in, or attack into the penalty area, or whatever it is he wants to do. And that's been one of our big issues over the last season, is breaking down these really stuffy, ultra defensive teams. I think when it comes to guys like Jones and Ojo on the other side, I think they're going to sort of live or die by whether they can do the job against those teams, because that's kind of what they've been signed for. So, I mean, I'm hopeful. He certainly showed signs on Thursday and today that he's got what it takes. But that they are relatively easy games in the sense that the other teams are more likely to be coming at us, or there's more space for them to play in. So hopefully, fingers crossed, you can do that in these more tight games.
But you can certainly see Steven Gerrard has identified that, and in his recruitment strategy this summer, Ian, that he's been, with Jordan Jones, with Shea Ojo, Brandon Barker coming in again today. You can clearly see that he's looking for that kind of creativity. Is that right?
Oh, I mean, he can see it. If we can see it, then I'm sure he can see it. It's just whether these players are capable of doing it. I suppose that's it, and time will tell whether that is the case. But I mean, he's obviously identified that as being an important element of what the team's got to do this season. But we had players, I suppose, like that last season, and they struggled to break down defences. So I think Jones especially looks, because he's played in Scotland for a couple of seasons already, and he knows the game here, so he knows what to expect. So maybe he's in a better place to take that on than perhaps some people thought he might be. Do
you think as well, Ian, though, that something that Gerrard's tried to address is perhaps a mental fragility that we had last season, not being able to, close out games or find a way to win games in a stuffy, teams sitting back and us having to break them down is obviously a physical side and the skill and having the pace to beat a man. But I think we also struggled last season with almost a mental block and struggling with the pressure and the atmosphere. Do you think that today, by the fact that we go 2-0 up and then Hibs get a goal back, you could argue it's the kind of game that last season we might have capitulated in? Does today's game show that the fact that we responded to that, we pushed on, we were helped by them going down to 10 men, but we really kicked up a gear in the second half? Do you think that shows that Gerrard has also been able to affect the mentality of these players and make them stronger in that regard?
Well, I hope so. I mean, that in fact, that kind of scenario has happened in the last 3 games, really, hasn't it? I mean, even in Denmark, we lost those 2 quick goals, and last season we lost quick goals in Moscow, and that we never recovered from that really, and we lost a goal at Kilmarnock, obviously, and we recovered from that. So the signs are that I mean, he's obviously identified it. The signs are that it's been taken on board. Again, like you say, we were helped a little bit by Hibs going down to 10 men. They had come back into the game to some extent, and that when it was 2-1, I was kind of slightly concerned that we weren't taking the chances that we were getting, and we were going to suffer from that, because it only takes a second for them to score, really. So but as it turned out, we reacted pretty well in the end, and were pretty ruthless, and as has been said, that's what's required. I would just wish we could get ruthless before they score the goal, and then we don't have to be quite as nervous about it. But
absolutely. I mean, I think between Hibs getting a goal back today and Midfield getting 2 goals back on Thursday, it must have added 5 years onto my life. David, one player that we're not seeing much of at the moment and wasn't even in sight of the squad today was Borna Barisic. Doesn't seem to be any injury problems there, but it looks like he was given the summer to stake his place, and he's come back in the pre-seasons and the pre-qualifiers and the start of the season, and it's just not happening for the boy. Is him being left out of the squad today entirely, is that a sign that his future at Rangers is non-existent?
Quite possibly. I think, judging by his performance last week at Rugby Park, especially for their goal, it just seems very timid, Ross. I know we've went over the pros and cons of Borna Barisic's game umpteen times on the pod, and you've got to think that for John Flanagan to come in after having an operation in the closed season and be pitched into such an important game as the Michelin first leg, and then been subbed off this afternoon and been replaced by Andy Halliday at left back. You know, it doesn't say much for Borna's chances of featuring on Thursday night. However, stranger things have happened. Personally, you know, I think we spoke at length last season. I was of the opinion, trying to, you know, glass half full, but let's see what Borna was like after having a pre-season with Rangers. And to be honest with you, I think he's at best stagnated. He's not showing anything that would suggest to me that he's mentally got his finger out. I don't think that he can cope with the mental pressures of playing for Rangers Football Club, and I don't think he's got a long-term future, Ross, I'm afraid.
No, it certainly looks that way, doesn't it? I mean, when you can't even get in the squad, and Andy Halliday, who's not a natural left back, is getting on the bench ahead of you. No, you're right. I certainly don't see him featuring on Sunday, and I suspect that's this might well be the end of the road for him. Obviously, the European transfer window is still open, I believe, until the end of the month. If there are French teams sniffing about Eros Grezda, maybe we can do a package deal. I don't know. I certainly really don't see much of a future for Borna Barisic, which is it's a shame, you know, considering the financial outlay that's there. This was a market that Rangers fans were desperate for us to go and scout in. You know, when we were signing, I think back 3 or 4 years back to the Warburton days, and we were signing Brentford reject after Brentford reject, and everyone was crying out, going, "Well, why don't we scout countries like Croatia?" Well, we did it, and it's just not worked out, which is it's a real shame for everyone involved. But hopefully, we can recoup some of the funds that we've spent on the transfer fee there. Just finally, Iain, today I think will rightfully go down as one of the best days of the season. I'm sure it's a fantastic win to score 6 goals against any Hibs side. I thought they were a poor Hibs side today, by the way, but any Hibs side is a really gratifying feeling. And there were too many kind of moments to pick out as standout moments for me. But I thought it was awesome to see Defoe get a hat-trick and then Morelos come on with 10-15 minutes to go and grab another 2 goals. And I think we have the best 2 strikers in the league at Rangers at the moment. The question is, though, is that enough, or do we need to replace Kyle Lafferty? Obviously, we've got, like we mentioned earlier, we've got very direct and very attacking players in Jordan Jones and in Shea Ojo, even in, you know, Greg Stewart, who I thought was, you know, he showed that he had flashes of skill when he came on. But do we need to replace Kyle Lafferty and bring in a third out-and-out striker?
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think, you know, all it takes is for one injury or one sort of streak of poor form or whatever, or suspensions is always a good possibility with one of our strikers anyway. Yeah, I think, you know, we do need 3 players. I mean, the problem is, I suppose, is that, you know, you're only ever going to be playing one of them, so that means 2 players are going to be on the bench and they're going to be disappointed. And I mean, that's always a problem for a manager to cope with. But, you know, I think we could really do with bolstering and giving a bit of backup to those 2 guys. I mean, especially Defoe, who's, you know, I know he's super fit, but, you know, he's 37 or whatever age he is now. He's maybe not going to be firing all cylinders for the whole season. And as I say, Morelos is always a bit of a loose cannon when it comes to suspension. So, you know, you don't know whether we're going to have him in important games. So, yeah, I definitely think we need somebody who's of a decent quality to come in and either as backup or as an alternative at some point. Who that would be, I have absolutely no idea. But I got the impression from something that Gerrard said today that maybe it's something that he's thinking about as well. But you know, I don't know if that was just wishful thinking or if he's actually got somebody in mind. But yeah, I definitely think we could do that.
Well, I mean, there's questions about whether, as John's pointed out here on the YouTube stream, maybe Shea Ojo, maybe Greg Stewart could play through the middle. I know that Greg Stewart has done that in the past throughout his career. He's played through the middle as a central striker. And you could maybe say at a push that Greg Stewart is our third striker. But the question would be, if we, you know, I agree with you entirely, and I think we probably do need some kind of cover or reinforcement in the central striker position. With that in mind, though, does it seem slightly strange that we would let Ryan Hardy and Andrew Dallas leave the club in the same transfer window?
Well, are they likely to get into the first team? I mean, I think that's the question. You know, and Stephen Gerrard will know that himself. If would he ever pitch them in? And he obviously thinks not at this stage, and that they'll benefit from a bit of time away or whatever, or leaving permanently. So I don't. We look at the youth players and think, well, they could do a turn, but the manager's the one that sees them in training and knows whether they're up to the job yet or not. I think you would want at this stage, and certainly where we are as a team, we would want experience and proven quality of somebody. It doesn't have to necessarily be a first choice striker, but I think we would want somebody you could trust. I mean, you just have to look at the League Cup semi-final last season, where we pitched in someone who was clearly not up to the job and it backfired. So I think we really need to have that extra option. I mean, Greg Stewart, to be honest, I don't really know an awful lot about him. I didn't know an awful lot about him before he came to Rangers, and I always thought he was a striker rather than a creative player, if you like. So that was how I saw him. So maybe he is the third option if we don't get someone in.
I mean, it's a tough one because, like you say, we're trying to find that balance between someone who has the quality to improve the team and to produce the goods when Morelos and Defoe are unavailable or being rested or whatever it might be, but also someone who's going to be willing to kind of sit on the bench for 85% of matches at the very least, and that's hard to come across out with the second goalkeeper position. It's hard to find a player who will be happy to do that, but still produce the goods of a sufficient quality when he's called upon to do that. I don't know. I don't know how you answer that question.
I suppose most players think that they'll be the one that will come in and they'll be so good that they'll take over and they'll be the first choice striker. So you hope that you get someone with that kind of mentality, and if it doesn't happen straight away for them, that they're not going to be disheartened, that they'll keep working at it and take their chance when they get it. And that's the kind of player you'd be looking for, rather than someone who's just willing to come in and be knows that they're going to be a squad player and just take it like that. Because I think we've had an awful lot of them over the years, so we don't really need any more of them. So I would be looking for somebody who might know that he's not necessarily first choice to start with, but has the confidence in himself to want to be the first choice. But these players are few and far between, probably, especially if you're looking for decent quality.
No, absolutely. And listen, as Stephen Saunders has pointed out here on the YouTube, Morelos is maturing this season. We've seen there were instances that I've picked up in Denmark where players were clearly trying to niggle him, trying to rile him up a wee bit. It happened with Kilmarnock as well, and he doesn't rise to it in the same way that he might have done last season. So perhaps the instances where we wouldn't have Morelos and Defoe are going to be few and far between. So perhaps this is all kind of a moot point. At the end of the day, today was a wonderful day to be a Rangers fan. That game I thoroughly enjoyed, and there were too many good performances to mention them all. But like you say, Ian, Stephen Davis was excellent. Ryan Jack, I thought, was superb in the middle of the park. Shea Ojo looked dangerous on a number of occasions, if perhaps a little naive. Defoe and Morelos, we don't even have to say how good they were today. Tavernier had an excellent game, had his best game of the season, in my opinion. So a wonderful day, a wonderful result, and thankfully it kind of closes that gap on the goal difference, which already seemed to be open up at the top of the table. I'm conscious of the time, so what we're going to do is we're going to move on and talk about the game midweek in Midtjylland out in Denmark. I was lucky enough to get a ticket and go to that game, which was a phenomenal experience, and can't speak highly enough for that club, by the way, who looked after everyone superbly. The town was great, the police were excellent, the pubs did a roaring trade. It was a wonderful wee trip. David, what did you make of the game on Thursday? Who really stood out for you, and are you pleased with the result?
I'm obviously pleased with the result, Ross. Pick a player to stand out. You've probably got to echo the manager's sentiments about Alfie. As you alluded to there, it was a mature performance. He got booked for nothing. But to score a goal and set up two other goals and occupy a defence largely by himself, I thought it was another excellent performance. But there was several excellent performances. I thought the two centre halves were good. The lads in the middle of the park were more than decent. James Tavernier, yet again, he's driving the team forward. So, John Flanagan coming in as a manager, rightly gave praise to coming in for his first start of the season. Looked his usual solid self, loves a tackle. It was really good the other night. If I could pick fault, and you're probably going to sigh and think, oh, here he goes again, but I just thought, see, for the 2 goals, if I could pick any fault, I thought that the middle of the park was a bit powder puff and stopping their players advancing. And there was a couple of instances where we, could have closed the advancing player down and at least make a tackle, or if we make a tackle, make sure we come out with the ball, and that didn't happen. So that would just be the one slight, down mark, if you like, against the team performance. Otherwise, I thought it was excellent, especially in light of last Sunday, which was a bit of a grind. Obviously, Connor Golson comes up trumps with a 92nd minute winner. I was going into the game on Thursday night thinking, well, this could be dodgy. It could be a case of getting back to Ibrox with any sort of result. But the guys obviously took a 3-goal lead. You could maybe point the finger and say they could have shut up shop, but obviously Michelin, they've got a big strong team, and they're kind of purple patch in a 10-minute period, managed to score 2 goals. But we came again. Scott Arfield scored a lovely finish to restore that 2-goal advantage. And whilst it's not easy street for us for Thursday night, it would take a monumental collapse for Michelin to come back into the reckoning. So I just hope that the lads can rectify where they went partially wrong, slightly wrong the other night, and put in another stellar performance on Thursday night.
See, I'm like you, David. When I got to the start of the game on Thursday, I got nervous. I was really, really nervous, and I was thinking, this could be any result here. We don't know a huge amount about them. In my view, David, these are 2 reasonably even teams. I don't think we're necessarily a league above Midtjylland. Why is it then that you think we were so superior on the day? What was the difference between the 2 sides out in Denmark?
I think that the Rangers try to control the game. Possession-wise, for large parts of the game, they controlled the ball. Looking back at the result, maybe in Friday morning, I was speaking to my brother about this and thinking, where would you see Michelin if they were playing in the Scottish League? Where would you equate them with? A Hearts or an Aberdeen? You think they're as good as that? And we couldn't really come up with an answer with that one. They're somewhere in between. I don't think Michelin are a great side. They're certainly a tricky side. They're a competent team. They've won the Danish title in the last 5 years or so. They've been in Europe several seasons. They've got experience at that level, but they've not exactly set the heather alight. I think that going back to what Iain spoke at length about with regards to Jordan Jones and some of the wider players that we've signed, I think that they wanted to come and play as well up to a point. If they had just been stuffy with a low block, and we were maybe playing a lot of square balls and playing in front of them, so to speak, I think it could have been a different game. But I think when teams come to, not necessarily take the game to Rangers, but they want to go toe to toe with Rangers, so to speak. I think our players get a degree of freedom that they might not necessarily get in Scotland, and it lends itself to maybe a confident display. But again, yourselves, guys, it's if somebody crosses the white line at the start of the match and they're at it, mentally they're at it, like Jordan Jones, want to take the balls, skip over a couple of challenges on the touchline and take the game to their defence. The other players get a lift from that, a mental lift, and say, right, we're on song tonight, and guys just click together. And I think it's early days in the season, obviously, but there seems to be the inklings of a step change, as you've mentioned as well, about the mentality side of things. They've had a season together, apart from the new boys that have just come in close season, so they know the story. They've heard the mantra that we've got to be winning every week. We've got to be the old cliche 2-0 up at half time in a lot of Scottish Premier League matches. And a lot of the guys have been used to the pressure of last season and are comfortable with it. I watched the pre-match press conference on Friday with Nico Katic, and he was asked, I think, by Chris Jack and maybe Charles Patterson from Sky Sports about did he feel comfortable dealing with the pressure and expectation of being a Rangers player, and he spoke at length about how he does feel that he's ready to embrace that challenge. And I think maybe when you've got 6, 7, 8 in the team that are ready to handle that expectation, then it can only augur well for team performances going forward.
And look, the most important thing for us on Thursday is that our defence are confident. And like you say, I was impressed by Nico Katic's press conference. I think he's kind of matured over the summer. I think he was wonderful out in Denmark, by the way. Won every header, took his goal beautifully. Iain, there's an interesting debate going on amongst the listeners at the moment, talking about Morelos picked up a booking out in Denmark, and if you get 3 bookings, that's a suspension, although those bookings are wiped if you happen to get to the group stage. Obviously, Morelos started the game on the bench today, only came on for sort of 10 or 15 minutes at the end. What do you think is the best way to set up there for our striking options on Thursday? Do you think it's worth risking Morelos to get that killer goal that really puts the tie to bed? Or would you leave him on the bench just with one eye on the disciplinary record?
Well, I'm usually of opinion that you put your best team out if you can for the game that you've got ahead of you. And if you want to win the game, then you put your best players out. In saying that, we're in a pretty comfortable position, or a pretty strong position. I would say that Steven Gerrard might be tempted to leave Morelos out. I think he felt probably last season when he played him in a game where, I can't remember which game it was, but he ended up picking up a booking and missed an important game. And I think Gerrard regretted doing that. And I think, given the opportunity again, he might take that view. I would say with Defoe up front, we should still be strong enough to get through that game, the second leg, without any great difficulty. I didn't think that Midtjylland were a brilliant team, but I think they were pretty competent. And I think if they scored an early goal, then maybe they would be under a bit of pressure. But they would have to win by 3 clear goals, and I think our defence is probably strong enough to cope with that. So I think you could take the risk on Morelos and leaving him on the bench if it's a risk, because we certainly would want to have him in the next round, because that should be another step up in terms of quality we're facing. One of the things I thought was quite interesting, I saw some stats from the game between our potential next 2 opponents, whose names have both gone right out of my head, and it was very one-sided. The polls were, I think, the massive advantage in terms of possession and shots on goal and corners and all the rest of it, and it ended up 0-0. And it struck me as that the Greek team were obviously going to be a difficult team to break down. So if they do get through, then we're going to be facing the kind of team that we've possibly struggled against in previous times. So I think you would definitely want Morelos up front in that, because that's the kind of game he can excel in when he gets a chance to hold up the ball and batter his way through defences in some ways.
Yeah, certainly. Look, we've got it's a tough one. It's a slightly strange position that we're in that we're obviously they need to come and score 3 goals at Ibrox, and as someone on the YouTube stream here, Shifted, has pointed out that not many teams are going to come and score 3 goals at Ibrox this season. Our defence has markedly improved from where it was 18 months ago. I mean, think back to the days of like Declan John and Russell Martin at the back. It's such a difference that we've made. But considering the slightly awkward position that we're in, that we need, we've got a fairly comfortable lead to defend. Iain, how would you actually set up the rest of your team? Do you go out and be quite aggressive and try and score that killer final goal, or do you soak up the pressure, confident in the knowledge that you can at least defend enough to not concede 3?
I definitely wouldn't want to be sitting back. I don't think we I think away from home in Europe, that's a fair enough tactic. But I think at home, because they get the pressure, the crowd get frustrated quite quickly, especially if if the other team are doing well. If they get an early goal, then we would really be, the panic button would get hit to some extent. So I wouldn't necessarily sit back and defend. I think we just play our normal home game and play how we're comfortable playing, and I think that's the most important thing. Instead of trying to change the game to suit the other team, I think we just play our game this time, and I think we should have more than enough to get through. It would take a pretty monumental collapse, as you say, to lose out, and I think we would only be bringing it on ourselves if we sat back too much and invited them to come and attack, because they did look at times fairly dangerous going forward, but I don't think we want to make it easy for them to do that.
No, certainly. Look, I think though it's worth pointing out that, and actually I noticed that Colin, who's obviously a regular feature on this show, has been commenting on the stream. I'm not sure I should actually take Colin's comments too seriously, considering he doesn't watch Rangers anymore. But he's saying that Midtjylland have to come and attack us, and we're very, very good on the counter-attack at the moment. When the space opens up, we have the quick players that can exploit that space. I mean, think about Joe Aribo's goal on Thursday. There was Jordan Jones picks up the ball in his own half, runs the length of the pitch, and we score a killer counter-attacking goal. I think this is set up for us to do quite well on Thursday, and then we'll be looking ahead to either a trip to Warsaw or a trip out to Athens, which is very, very exciting. Obviously, financially for the club, it's excellent. So it's a difficult one. It's an awkward position to be in, but like you say, I'd much rather be in Rangers' position at the moment than be in Midtjylland's position. A word for Joe Aribo, by the way, David. I thought Joe Aribo on Thursday was superb, and again, he's shown today that he's maybe a little bit quieter. Maybe he's feeling it in his legs a wee bit. But I mean, what a signing we've picked up in this boy.
Yeah, it looks good. I like my players that can dribble, that are happy to take the ball in tight areas. He's showing that he's got very good close control. I think there was a couple of passes I played today where there was a couple of Hibs boys close to him. I think it's Stevie Mallon and it may have been Scott Allen, and he kind of danced around about them. It looks good. It's early days, fair enough. He's came from League One in England, third level English football, so it's early days. I wouldn't rush to judge him. I cast my mind back 12 months, and Ovi Ajaria seemed to hit the ground running reasonably well when he pitched up at first, and then sadly Ovi, for whatever reason, tailed off. But Joe's here permanently. He's certainly one for the future, but he looks tidy on the ball. He looks as if he's got a bit of vision. He looks as if he's got the courage of his convictions. His goal on Thursday night, as you rightly said, it was a tidy finish. Very composed, knew where he was putting it. I think the boy can only get better. I think just to go back to the previous point, I think that if we can get a goal relatively quickly on Thursday night, I think that more or less kills the tie. I think it would knock the stuffing right out of Midtjylland. Joe Aribo might be instrumental in providing that hopefully that first goal, which could obviously put the tie to bed, so to speak. Also, another thing that's striking me is, today you see the strength of the bench. You've got Scott Arfield and Alfredo Morelos on the bench. Not too shabby in terms of options to bring off the bench and onto the pitch to try and change a game if required. But as you rightly said, Joe looks the business. Early days for him. He looks as if he's comfortable. He looks as if the manager's got his back. Obviously, the manager signed him. And I'm sure there'll be a few other sides that will be maybe kicking themselves that they didn't get, Joe.
I totally agree, especially in terms of his ability. I think he's definitely got the ability there. What will, as always is the case with Rangers players, is that you have to have the mentality as well. At the moment, he looks like he has, but as we say, we're very early in the season. But if he has got that sort of strength of character and mentality that you need as a Rangers player, where you've got to go out and do the business every single week, then we've got a talent on their hands then. And hopefully, if he is coming up from a much lower level in terms of expectation, not necessarily again in terms of the quality of the opposition, but certainly the expectations he's going to face. And if he does tail off a wee bit, I'm hoping that pressure won't immediately go on him. If he has to be left out of the team for a while just to recover, then hopefully we've got the options in the squad to cover for him, and then he'll come back as strong as ever, and he won't sort of take it to heart too much. But I think it's early days, but he looks the part as a player, and he seems to have the right mentality as well, from what I can tell. So I think we might have a real good talent on our hands there.
Absolutely. I mean, if I'm being selfish, I'd like to see him be a bit more direct and a bit more positive with the ball, but it seems like the role he's been asked to play is to kind of anchor things and more kind of play incisive passes rather than run at defenders, which I'd love to see him try. I saw him do it a wee bit for Charlton, so I know it's something he's got in his locker. But like you say, Ian, if he does have to, we have to protect the asset in a way. And he's a young player, new league, new country. There will be times when he needs to be brought out of the team just to protect him, just to look after him a wee bit. Thankfully, the position that we're in now is that we have got Stephen Davis, Ryan Jack, Glenn Kamara, Greg Docherty, all of whom I would, happily trust to fill in the midfield. I think Aribo has shown at the moment that he's possibly the strongest creative central midfielder that we've got at the moment. The way that he covers the ground, obviously we saw him making up a lot of ground on Thursday to get his goal, but we saw it again today with Alfredo's first goal. Aribo was there waiting for the cutback, so he's got a real attacking brain and a real an intelligence about his play that he knows where to be. He senses the danger and he really goes for the jugular. So I'd love to see him try that with the ball, but I think he's had a wonderful start to his Rangers career, and let's hope it can continue from there. Right, we've got around about 18 minutes left of the show. What I'd like to do now is just take a wee look at the news around the club, see what's been happening over the last 7 days. Obviously, it's been a wonderful week for Rangers on the park, but take a look at what's been happening off the pitch. The biggest news, I suppose, from the week happened yesterday with or back on Friday, with the announcement of the signing of Brandon Barker from Man City. Brandon Barker's a name possibly quite familiar to some of us who, he had a loan spell at Hibs, I think 2 seasons ago. If I remember correctly, played reasonably well against Rangers, a reasonably attacking, creative player. Since then, it seems that he's gone away. He's played a wee bit at Preston, played out on loan in England, struggled with injury, and now has signed a permanent deal at Rangers. David, it's probably fair to say that there's been some criticism of this signing. The reception hasn't been overwhelmingly positive. What's your immediate thoughts on Barker to Rangers?
It's a difficult one. I think, as Ian mentioned earlier in the show, I think that the manager's looking to have 2 players for every position. Brandon Barker's an attacking talent. He's obviously had some injury issues. I think I saw a stat that during his 6-month loan or 4-month loan last season at Deepdale, I think he only completed 90 minutes twice in that period of time. I think he's had 2 hamstring injuries recently, so it may well be that he had a bad run of luck in terms of injuries, and he's over that now, and Rangers have saw fit to push the boy out and sign him. My initial thoughts were, he's obviously they've signed a guy that's of a similar ilk to Ryan Kent. The fact that he's signed permanently would possibly suggest that Ryan Kent isn't coming back, although that's remains to be seen. Whether it might not necessarily be this window that Ryan Kent may or may not come back. But Brandon Barker, he's based on what we saw of him when he was playing with Hibs. I mean, he had 1 game against us. I seem to recall, was it the 5 each game at the tail end of 2 seasons ago? I think he was pretty hot that day. I seem to recall I'm turning James Tavernier inside out on several occasions that day. So he's one that's got attacking talent. He's direct, he's rapid. He can run with the ball at his feet. He's an out ball. I can picture, maybe going to Parkhead, possibly, having to weather the storm, and Brandon Barker would give you that option of taking the ball for the proverbial walk, to get us up the pitch. So I'm gonna reserve judgment. I'll not lie and say that I was a wee bit, scratching my head initially, thinking, right, we've signed another wide player. How come we've not signed a striker? But I'll reserve judgment. I think once we see the guy get used to his surroundings, get over if he's got any kind of fitness issues in terms of legacy problems with previous injuries, get over that, and let's see what the boy can do. Obviously, we've signed him. The staff must believe in him in some way, shape, or form. So it's down to Brandon if he can accept the challenge of the expectation of playing for a club the size of Rangers, which you would like to think shouldn't be too alien to him, having come from Manchester City. But it's one thing being an academy player at Eastlands and then coming to play for Rangers, where you're, as I said previously, you're expected to be 2-0 up at half time every game you play for Rangers. So yeah, let's. I hope the boy does well when he gets a chance.
No, look, let's be fair. It was a slightly underwhelming announcement. Everyone's been crying out for Ryan Kent to come back over the window, and with this, it kind of seems he's not coming back, and we've replaced him with a guy who was okay for Hibs a couple of years ago and hasn't really done much since then. So you can see why, on paper, people would be slightly perplexed and slightly concerned about this signing. Is he really the quality that we need? Iain, it's probably fair to say, though, that certainly from my perspective, there have been a number of signings over the Steven Gerrard reign where I've gone, I'm not so sure about that. So Glenn Kamara, when that was announced, I thought, really? Jordan Jones, again, I wasn't sure why we'd be signing him. And both of those players, certainly Glenn Kamara in the second half of last season and the way that Jordan Jones has started this season, looked like proving me very, very wrong indeed. So is it a case that we need to kind of trust the scouting team on this one? Because it looks like it's more of our less high-profile signings. It's not our Borna Barisic signings or our Eros Grezdas that are really setting the heather alight. It's the guys that are coming in slightly under the radar, and the slightly underwhelming signings seem to be doing the business. Is that possibly going to be the case with Barker?
Well, let's hope so. I think the disappointing thing with the reaction to the signing, I suppose, has been that probably most people don't really know much about him and are sort of being quite quick to judge that he's not what we need. But as I said before, I think the manager wants two players for every position. I can't see him being an automatic starter by any stretch of the imagination. But if we've got a long, hard season ahead of us, we're going to need to have a bit of rotation. I don't know whether Barker is a good player or not. Clearly he's got a talent, or he wouldn't be at Man City in the first place. But I think we need to give him a chance. I think the disappointment is probably, as you touched on there, is that a lot of people were hoping that we were going to produce Ryan Kent from a magic hat somewhere, and that was never going to happen. Certainly before the deadline day in England, I don't think that was ever likely to be an option. And you sort of seen as a bit of a sort of here's what you could have won kind of thing. But yeah, you're right. Maybe perhaps with the levels of expectation with some players is too high, and with other players starts off so low that when they actually turn out not to be the duds that people think they're going to be, then we're all pleasantly surprised. I'm sure Steven Gerrard had seen Kamara playing and knew exactly what he was getting, so it wouldn't have come as any surprise to him. And same with Jordan Jones. So it's maybe just some of us fans need to sort of think, well, maybe we should trust the manager a bit more, or whoever it is that makes the decisions on signings. I'm sure it is the manager. Trust them that they know what they're doing most of the time, and most of the time they get it right. There are occasions when they don't, but that's the nature of football. It's always been the case that some signings don't work, and you just have to live with that.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting way of looking at it, that these players are coming in with slightly lower expectations, so when they do show themselves to be Rangers quality, it kind of takes everyone by surprise a wee bit. The kind of inverse of this story is that with one winger coming in, it looks like another winger's on his way out, in the form of Jamie Murphy. It looks like there's, we're trying to sort out an exit on loan for Murphy. It's kind of a sad one there, Iain, isn't it? He, in my book, he did quite well in his first season. He got chipped in with a number of goals and a number of assists. He was always quite creative and one of our better players at breaking down stuffy teams. He then gets himself a horror injury on what can hardly be described as the pitch at Rugby Park, and never really managed to make his way back in. Is it the right idea to send him out on loan, or do you think there's possibly a role that he could be playing at Ibrox over the course of the season?
No, I think a loan would be a great move for him, and for him personally, if he proves himself on loan that he's back to full fitness and back to what he was, then he will come back into the Rangers team and perform there, or get himself a permanent move to somewhere else. So I think from his point of view, it's the best option, because he's clearly quite far from playing for our first team at the moment. And I think from the club's point of view, the same applies. If we can get him out there playing regularly, and then perhaps at the end of the loan period he can come back and he will be an option. Because as you say, I mean, he's he did well for us. He's done well for us until that injury, and we missed him, I think, when he went out the team last season. So, but clearly at the moment, the manager doesn't think he's ready to come back into the first team fold. So get him out, get him playing. Hopefully he'll do well on his loan spell and reassess it in January and see what the next move is.
I mean, realistically though, with the number of wide players that we've got at the club, we've let Candeas go, but we've replaced with Barker. It seems we've got a number of wide players. Is there realistically any future for Jamie Murphy at the club, or is this another one of those occasions where we have a player on a long-term contract who we kind of just whittle the contract down over the years and say goodbye quietly at the end of the contract in a couple of years' time?
Well, that might be the case. I don't know. I mean, long term. I mean, if he's playing brilliantly, then we would be crazy just to dump him. I don't think that would be in anyone's mind. I think Steven Gerrard would much rather see him go on loan, do well on loan, and if he's ready to come back, then bring him back. But in saying that, if he doesn't, if the manager doesn't think he's got a future for whatever reason, then it's better to be out there playing and in the shop window than sitting in the sidelines doing nothing. That doesn't help anyone, doesn't help the player, and it doesn't help the club. So either way, I think a loan is the best option short term. And then but I mean, I don't think the door's closed to him. I think he still possibly has a future. It'll all depend how the next 6 months go, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. If I'm being totally honest, I'm not sure I see him slotting back into the side. I think obviously he's getting on a wee bit in years, especially compared to the rest of the squad, which is quite a young and vibrant squad at the moment. And I just worry that he doesn't quite have the quality at this stage of his career to make an impact at Rangers in a season or 2 seasons' time. But listen, I'd love to be proved wrong. I think he did a cracking job in his first year at Rangers. He certainly brought some into the team, so I'd love to see him make a meaningful contribution if he can. David, the last thing that I wanted to cover tonight, we had Steven Gerrard twice this week, and firstly in his post-match press conference out in Denmark, and then in his pre-match press conference this week ahead of the Hibs game, mentioning that he needs to he wants to see Ibrox rocking again. He wants the fans creating a real atmosphere, a real buzz around the stadium. First things first, we've had some excellent games against Hibs and games that I can remember where the stadium's been absolutely bouncing. Did we manage that today?
I think the atmosphere was decent. The first quarter of an hour, say, there was some singing. The goals were warmly celebrated, certainly around about where I sit. It's a difficult one, Ross. It's you're loath to sound critical of support because, for the most part, I think the Rangers crowd is a knowledgeable crowd. Yes, it can be a bit impatient, especially when things are maybe not going the team's way. But I think when the chips are down, I think our support, there's not many better supports than the Rangers support when it comes to backing the team. Today, a difficult one. In the first half, we race into a 2-goal lead early on. Hibs come back. Could you point the finger at the support collectively for being a bit edgy? Quite possibly. Is that a fault with the support? I think you've got to say yes. Sometimes the crowd can go quiet in games that are maybe not super important matches. With this being an early fixture in the season. But I don't know where the manager's going with this one. I think the support home and away is pretty good. They create an atmosphere here, obviously over in Denmark during the week there, and the atmosphere was pretty good, certainly from what I could hear on the TV watching the live stream. I think there could possibly be more singing, but then again, the team's got a responsibility to entertain the support. I think that the team, to be fair to them, did entertain the fans. Maybe the weather had something to do with it. I don't know, Ross. I think I'm sitting on the fence with this one. I'm loath to criticise the support, but I can, on the other side of the coin, I can possibly see where the manager's coming from.
See, that's the thing. We scored 6 excellent goals today, and it just right. I live down in London. I live down south. I didn't get to the game, so I'm watching it however I can, and it just seemed to me that the atmosphere wasn't at the same level that it perhaps could have been. But like you, David, I'm loath to criticise the support, and I'd rather criticise the powers that be at the club for not providing an environment where we can make the atmosphere flourish. And what I'm driving at here is, David, is it time for us to be seriously pushing for safe standing?
Safe standing would possibly increase the atmosphere. I know the Union Bears were trying to get moved in behind the goal in the Broom Loan. The club, for whatever reason, have saw fit to maybe put the brakes on that move. Would safe standing add to the atmosphere? I honestly don't know, Ross. I mean, I've been going to games at Ibrox now where I've been used to sitting. When you went to away games that were terracing, that used to be a bit of a novelty. You could stand and the feeling in the stadium or the ground itself is obviously very different. Would it be a step backwards? I don't know. I think that Rangers are one of those clubs where, in many instances, Rangers are expected to win, and more often than not, they do win. And it's, as a collective support, it's hard to get up for, no disrespect intended here, but almost like dead rubbers. It's a difficult thing. I think when you see European matches, the crowd gets up, and certainly big league games for cup semis or cup finals, the crowd can get up and generate a tremendous atmosphere when it wants to. When the chips are down, when there's maybe there's a rival in the league or in a cup competition that are going to pose a serious threat, then there's that extra 5-10% in the electricity stakes gets added onto the crowd. But safe standing, we could pilot it. Where would you pilot it in the ground? I don't know. I mean, would you stick it in maybe the Copeland corner? That might be an idea. Could you maybe have a section in one of the enclosures, make that safe standing again? I mean, obviously, in years gone by, remember back to Walter Smith's time before they seated the enclosures, the east enclosure was always bouncing. Remember Walter Smith's Blue and White Army getting a rendition over and over again for good 20-25 minutes of a half. Could those days come back? Possibly. We need to wait and see. I
mean, let's hope so, because surely today was one of those days where we are playing obviously not what I'd call a rival, but a team that we certainly haven't had a good relationship with over the past decade or so. And a game in which we put 6 past them, and it's a team that caused us a lot of problems last season. So you'd have thought that today the atmosphere would have been electric and alive, and it just sounds like it slightly fell short of that. Iain, I'll come to you for the last word on this. Let's say if it isn't safe standing, maybe that's too costly, or we can't get it signed off by the not so compliant Glasgow Council. Is there anything else that can be done around the stadium to generate some kind of atmosphere? Is there something else that we can do to really get Ibrox rocking?
I don't really know. I mean, I've been around for a long time, and this sort of debate has probably been going for as long as I can remember, really. I think, as David said, some games you can get the crowd up for it, and some games it's just not. And I think it's not unique to Rangers by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you go to almost every game ground in England, the top level, and a lot of the time the atmosphere is flat. And in fact, Ibrox has probably got far more atmosphere going than most of the Premier League and Championship grounds in England. So I don't think it's a unique problem to us. I just think it depends on the game. I think it depends on the expectations. It depends how the game pans out as well, because quite often games that start off fairly bland, if they kick off during the match, then the crowd gets up for it and reacts to it. So a lot of it depends on what happens on the pitch. I really don't know. I mean, safe standing, I think is a good idea, because I think it's for some people are very keen to stand, and I think it helps the atmosphere. A lot of people don't want to stand, so that's fine. It's no problem with that. But doing sort of, I don't know how you would drum up atmosphere. A lot of it seems quite artificial to me. The stuff that gets done in grounds in Europe. I don't know. I just think it's just the way. In some ways, it's just the culture and just the way we are, and that there's not an awful lot you can do to change that, other than just hope the team turns up on the day and gets people excited.
Well, look, it certainly seems that that's what's going to be happening this season. If the first few games of the season are anything to go by, it looks like we're going to have plenty of exciting moments. So hopefully the team can do their bit, the fans can respond, and we can kind of spur each other on in that regard. If not, we'll just buy some disco lights. Right, listen, I think that's probably just about all we have time for this evening. So as always, I'd like to say a massive, massive thank you to David Fraser for returning to the show, and to Iain for making his debut tonight, for your time and your insight. Thank you very, very much. If you guys have enjoyed the show, then please do let us know. Although I can see that a couple of you have been giving us wee ad hoc reviews in the YouTube comments there, so thanks for that, lads. The show is going to be available for download from tomorrow morning. That'll be on iTunes, Acast, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Music, anywhere you get your podcast regularly. So make sure you do subscribe and never miss a thing from Gersnet. Also, make sure you head over to our website, www.gersnet.co.uk. There's a whole host of articles, insight, match previews, loads of stuff. There is also a very, very friendly discussion forum where you can find all of tonight's contributors. You can let us know how much you disagree with everything we've just said. The show will be back next week, same time, same place. That's Sunday at 9:30 p.m. on the YouTube stream. Colin is going to be the host, talking you through hopefully another smashing week in Govan, although knowing him, he'll probably tell you about Liverpool and Camelon Juniors. Following that, all that's left for me to say is thank you very, very much for listening, and have a great week.